Welcome, brothers and sisters. My name is Eros and I am the Toll Maker. And also, welcome to this new series in which we will talk in depth about the elements one by one for our magical practice and for our systems of correspondences. So, we start with the more ethereal one. Today we will talk about the element of air. Now, air is about the mind. We will work with air to develop concentration or to disrupt concentration if we need to do so. Also, we will work with air when we want to move thoughts. So, everything that revolves around the mind. Also, we will work with the mind, so with air, to avoid distractions or to cause distractions. But also, we are able to call upon air to reach flow states within ourselves, or even meditative and trance-like states. So every techniques that revolves, as you guessed, around the breath. Then, working with air, we can influence our mind to influence reality, because everything starts with the mind. Also, the mind influences the body. So, working with air towards our mind, we will be, at a certain extent, able to influence even our body. And of course, working with the mind, we are able to modify the way we formulate things for better effects. The second major field we will call air to work upon is communication, either facilitating communication, stopping communication. For example, if you want to stop gossip, or to make a certain communication happen, to receive that call, or to be able to make that call, or that conference, or whatever involves communication. Because air is also about perception. So communication happens only when we perceive it. Otherwise, it's not communication. And this field of communication is also valid for modern communication. For example, everything that happens in the social medias, everything that happens on the on the internet, if you want. Because, of course, internet travels through the ether, travels through air. If you want to see it in a sort of wireless way. Of course, the servers, the hardware are heavy, are physical, but the information is light, and communication revolves around transmitting information. Then, another field we will call air upon to work on is mind control, our inner communication. So the way we formulate our thoughts. So it's also about persistence, a constant wind, if you want, and controlling our habits through our thoughts. So controlling our thoughts, as we've learned in previous series is at least the start of forging habits, and especially habits of thinking. So this is important. Mind control is important for our life, for ourselves, but also for our spirit communication. Because to communicate directly with a spirit, we need to be able to recognize our thoughts from external ones. We have learned all about mind control in previous series that someone smarter than we will put here somewhere. But also, air is amazing to call upon to facilitate our communication, our inner communication, in this sense, if you want, and knowing what our thoughts are to eventually modify them or perfection them. And of course, it's extremely important to work upon our meditation techniques. Understanding what we think and why. If we need to be brief in the explanation. Because of course, controlling our thoughts is also an extremely important thing to develop our psychic abilities. It's a development, day by day. The flow of air, controlling the flow of air. Also, another field we will work with air with is everything that revolves around travels. That means, of course, anything that revolves around going from point A to point B. But it's not only physical travel. With travels, we also mean journeys. So changing thoughts, changing our thoughts. We see again the influence of air on the mind at this point. And also, as we said, changing ourselves through travel. So with a day by day approach, building habits. And of course, also physical travel that change our way of thinking. So it's all about control of our thoughts, or analyzing our thoughts in our journey, within our travels, but also through communication, understanding the journey of other people and understanding the information, who they are in their minds. So, at this point, we can clearly say that air is all about understanding changes of others, but especially of ourselves in our path. So, the change in general can be sudden, can happen fast, with speed, and we need to be able to manipulate that change in our understanding, so within ourselves. But sometimes change is subtle, happens slowly, and we need to be able to integrate the information that is coming like a breeze toward us to renovate our minds. We need to be able, in a sense, to change our minds in different situations through our life. So, bringing innovation within ourselves. I know that many of you are fighters, so I'm going to make a martial arts example. If we were to put ourselves in opposition within the pentagram that represents the equilibrium of the elements, we will clearly see that air will be positioned in our right hand. So, in a fighting example, the right hand, of course, I'm a striking fighter, so not a grappler. In this example, air will be in our right hand that will usually bring sudden strikes, knockout strikes. This is also an analogy to changing mind, because being unconscious is, of course, a state of mind also. But in a fighting technique example, the elements of the air will represent the fate or guard changes, everything that plays with the mind of our opponents, or using our mind to outplay our opponents. So, heavy strikes or mind tricks in a fighting example. Just like in our daily life, we strike with the elements of air. When we strike with the elements of air is when we do it with communication with the mind. So we either do it in a subtle way through poisonous words at the right here, or through decisive declaration, just like what happens with politics times to time. If we want to make a completely different example, on a more survivalist way of thinking, we can clearly see an analogy between the elements of air and the trees of survival. One of the three is 3 minutes without breathable air. Otherwise, you will reach unconsciousness. That, of course, is also a state of mind, is something that blocks our mind from doing its job. And we can clearly see while and if we were to be strangled, we could not apply our mind to any task, or at least we will not be able to correctly react to the aggression, for example. So, in a certain sense, this correlation between air and the mind, if we were to be deprived of air, or at least of the presence, the importance of the element of air in our life, we will not be able to clearly use our mind to apply the techniques we've learned with our mind in reality. Of course, this is a survivalist example. If we were to be stripped of our equipment and support systems, what will happen without the influence of the elements of air, or even a balance of the elements of air? We want to be able to use our mind to control and react with technique. This being said, let's start with a few correspondences. You've learned a few correspondences in the previous videos, of course, but we will dive a little deeper this time. So, the color corresponding to air is yellow. The season corresponding to air is spring. The timings corresponding to air are during the day sunrise, and in our life the timing is the birth, the time of birth. The cardinal direction correlated is east, and the guardian tower related to air is the Archangel Raphael. Talking about the arcanas, the tarot cards, the suite related to air is swords, and the court also related are knights or princesses, princess, in case you use a different deck from mine. The metal related to air is copper. In some tradition we may even find tin related to air. In alchemical elements, air is related to azot. You may see this element as the comburent that generate the alchemical reaction. And the physical state related to air is gas. Traditional elemental spirits corresponding to the elements of air are the sylphs, and physical elements related to air are every flying animals, but also spiders that hunts in the air and many other aerial beings. The magical weapon related to air is the dagger. In our tradition, you may call the dagger Atame or Athame. Many magical operations we practice through the elements of air are fumigations for purification, cleansing, and many other things, but also any use of incense is of course related to air, or many operations just like Tritaka that are related to the breath. And when we want to work with the elements of air, the best part of the plant to use are the petals or the flowers, or even in some cases resins, also related to the incenses, because resins are of course dried from the wind. If you want to use the part most related to air while working with a plant, of course you may want to use a plant related to a different element, but you may want in that case to use the part most related to air to also convoke in at least a certain way, in at least a little part, the influence of the element of air. Now, talking herbs, we most likely have already seen lavender, sage, oregano, anise, star anise, nutmeg, but there are also violet, pansy, marjoram, cumin, peppermint, mimosa, and also pine, lemongrass, vervain, couchgrass, fennel, and wild fennel. Now, if you like to work with crystals, you may want to work with quartz, amethyst, aventurine, azurite, celestite, jade, malachite, jasper, topaz, and tourmaline. Now, if we want to locate the elements of air with zodiacal correspondences, we see that cardinal air is in the sign of Libra, fixed air is in the sign of Aquarius, and mutable air is, of course, in the sign of Gemini. Then, I know this has been a complex one, so take your time to take your notes, of course, and I hope I will see you in the next video for the elements of fire. As always, I deeply thank you for your kind attention, and may eternal light always shine upon you.